Well, welcome to Audit Tuesday. Here we're having a dynamic discussion today here on the GRC Podcast. We're going to explore the dual edge sort of supply chain vulnerabilities and identity risk today. And so joining us to help us along with this, we have David Pulaski. He's CEO of InvisiRisk. And he is going to be talking to us about what they're doing in this particular area. And then we also have yours truly, Garret, Grajek, CEO of YouAttest. And he's a 15 patented identity innovator. And so welcome, guys. Appreciate you. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
So, David, let's start and set the stage kind of for you here. Thank you for joining us here as our guest. Kind of set the stage for us here and what we're really looking at with InvisiRisk and why you feel this is so important and significant right now for CISOs worldwide.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Today the market has really been so zoned in on shift left tools for getting products out more quickly that it hasn't done a lot in terms of tooling for keeping CISOs out of the news. And what we do specifically is we help CISOs and companies stay out of bad news reports by exposing the invisible risks of the last mile of the software supply chain, which is the CI/CD, hence the name InvisiRisk. So CISOs are out there making public claims about their cybersecurity policies, but the modern attacks like SolarWinds and PyPI and others, they're attacking the pipeline itself. They're not attacking, early tooling that the developers are using. They're attacking once you hit go and your automation kicks into place. At that point, the train's left the station. So in the early 90s, there was a build machine and everybody wrote to that build machine, but now it's a network. So we ultimately are protecting customers, investors by protecting the machine that builds the machines you build and buy, the machine that builds your software. We're focused on that task.
Are you? You're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, David. I appreciate that input. And Garret, tell us a little bit about what you're doing in this area that really complements what David's working on.
Yeah. David's stuff is awesome. We're going to get into that because it's right into the heart of the matter of the application. Ensure that it's enforcing. I'm an identity guy. That's all I've been my whole life. Companies like RSA and Integrity, IBM, Cisco focused on identity before starting two-factor companies like SecureAuth. And YouAttest addresses identity rights. And you're like, oh, look, Garret, there's wonderful products out there. Okta, Entra ID, JumpCloud, Ping, to name a few that are identity rights. No, we're identity attestation. What have you actually given your rights to? Okay. And that's going to be very relevant to this conversation about the supply chain, because it's not only the rights of your users, of your employees, but now many of our customers have more contractors, suppliers, and partners than they do employees. So that's what we'll be getting into.
Excellent. Thanks. So David, explain to us a little bit on InvisiRisk and how it identifies and mitigates these hidden risks in the build.
Originally, everybody has heard of a WAF now, Web Application Firewall. The core of our functionality is a build application firewall. It is a bidirectional protocol-aware firewall that connects to your CI/CD, sets up in minutes. But it's doing a deep packet inspection of all the transactions and things happening at that layer. So the reason the web application firewall came out is there was new protocols and things that old school firewalls couldn't learn to recognize and use to protect. That same thing is now happening with these build systems. Standard firewalls don't protect your build system. And so what we've done is we've built what we call our BAF, our build application firewall, to protect that machine that's building your software. And there's tons of byproducts around that, like real-time enforcement, we build what we call a true SBOM. We have the only like DNA level SBOM. We can help you with provenance, where things are coming from. We're watching things we're watching things happen in real time. You mind if I share my screen with you real quick?
Please
Go
do.
for it.
Show you something really cool. So this is something that no other tool can do. So once coders check code in, at some point you hit go on the CI/CD and it's running, right? It could be automated, someone could manually do it, but now that it goes. So you've got scanners and agents looking at all the different layers inside of your network. But once you hit go, the horse leaves the barn, right? And so our product is sitting in that layer, watching for risks. We can actually stop things in real time, but most importantly, we're the arbiter of truth. So if a log file is telling you this is supposed to happen, but when you hit the go on the build system, something else could happen. And so that's where the most nasty things are happening. So check this out. I'm going to hit play. That is a build actually happening. Any of these red components could stop or just warn you. So we're looking at the source code, checkout, dependencies, build application, packaging. We're also looking at where and when things, like we're actually looking at where things are going to pull from, right? So we're not dealing with the access and who has rights to your build system. That's all Garret. They do an awesome job of that. What we're doing is saying, once those people who have access hit go, what's actually happening in your build? So you can see if something's posting or pulling from the right place to wrong place, and then enforce policy that your scanners and agents may have missed by looking at stale or outdated log files, misconfigurations, and things like that. I hope that wasn't too technical and didn't throw you for a loop there, but I got a little geeky.
No, that was technical, but I mean, it was good. So Garret, yeah, you know, as mentioned, you know, where is it that you sort of infuse here in the supply chain? I mean, what are some of the underlying security principles that you know really should be followed at this time that are really being ignored in the supply chain that you can address?
Well, you know, I sponsor a little league baseball team called NIST CSF 2.0 PRAO5. Okay, it's real catchy. You know, everyone knows that one. Just kidding. There, you said, what's the principle? I have that. Like I have, you know, my son's baseball number, right? It's NIST is PRAO5 is the principle of least privilege. Okay, the principle of least privilege is just that. It is the concept that says, whatever we're doing, we're building AI, great. Who has access to the data? Principal of least privilege. We're giving access to our financials, great. What are we doing? Well, let's make sure that that's pretty reviewed. We're giving, you know, information to our source code, right? Who has access? That's the principle that YouAttest is built on, the principle of least privilege. And how we do that is by always ensuring that the entitlements that we granted are reviewed by the people who are giving those entitlements. And so it's a little more advanced when you start thinking about the principle of least privilege. Principle of least privilege as enforced in the guidances say, hold it. If you really want to do this, we put a lot of pressure and a lot of work on Bob, the IAM guy. Okay. Well, Bob, the IAM guy really doesn't know who should have access. That's not his day job. His day job is to enforce access. So let me just walk you through one, because we'll be doing a demo later, but let me show the right screen in theory. What we do here is we let you, oh, there we go. That's what happens when you got too many screens. Let's go over here. Okay, so here's the world. Someone is out there, they're a cyber, the risk guide, you got all these regulations and guidances, and you have all your partners, you have all these identity stores. What we're doing is we're imbibing all these identity stores, whatever you got, whatever you're keeping these supply chain entitlements, okay? Let YouAttest into them. And what we're doing is grabbing the metadata, not your credentials, not your authentication stuff. And then what it does is it pushes out the attestations, not the poor Bob or Jane who's running the Entra ID or the Okta or whatever you're keeping them in, or the Workday. pushes it out to the actual manager. Okay. And this could be internal or external. Doesn't matter. What it is who has the who should know who has rights. Now, the right way to do the supply chain, especially if you're imbibing identities, is have a manager from your inside your enterprise manage that and say, okay, I have these 3 people from company X, these 2 people from company Y, and 1 person from company Z. They're allowed to get this resource, and that should be regularly reviewed. And that's what our product does. It automates that and automates that review. It creates the report, and it can also go back and remove that data as well. And just FYI, those reports are secure. About 40% of our customers use this, not even for compliance, but those reports are needed, are required in your SOX report, in your SOC report, in your HIPAA report, in your PCI DSS report. That's what's required. Okay.
Thanks, Garret. So, David, with 70% of software out there having open source code, what should a CISO be really concerned about, and where can you guys as InvisiRisk, show them, I guess, some improvements in this area specific to what you're doing?
Yeah. So today, by the way, in case people don't know what an SBOM is, an SBOM is a list of the open source components inside of a software application. Today, probably now with AI, close to 80% of every line of code in a software application is open source, pulled from who knows where. There's easy ways for people to bypass blessed repositories, which we can kind of enforce that type of policy, tools like JFrog. But the problem is most tools are working off of what are called manifest files, which is basically, think of it as like Ancestry.com, where Aunt Millie posts, who her brothers and sisters were. And so there can be a lot of errors in that. There can be a lot of old information or misinformation. And so what happens is once software is built, most of these tools that are tracking open source vulnerabilities, they're not DNA level. And so we are watching deep packet inspection of every single transaction that happens once that CI/CD kicks off and the code is actually built, where the rubber hits the road. So we're not only seeing what open source components got into your code, but we're stripping out things that we didn't see built in the code, so you're not chasing things down for CISOs. And then finally, we're looking at the provenance. Where was that pulled from? And what's really important is, again, it goes back to attestation. Companies are making claims of how they're securing the applications they're building and protecting from products they're buying. But without knowing exactly what is in your software and tracking it in real time ongoing, you're really making a claim that you can't enforce. And I can tell you almost every single time we go out and do a comparison with show me your SBOM, and we'll tell you what's really inside of your code, it is night and day, and you can drive a truck through what's out there. And again, the reason why is the attestation claims and tools people are making today are not relying on actual real-time live data when the build happens. And so we're really, really proud of the technology we built. And once again, we can do this not just for software that you're building yourself, but if you have a third-party list of open source components that a vendor has given you. For example, the DoD is now required from an executive order to request an SBOM for every piece of software they buy. And I can assure you that every one of those SBOMs is probably inaccurate, right? And so we can take a third-party SBOM, put it through our firewall or proxy, and basically come back and say, here's what's really inside of that application. And it's something that's very, very unique. And it, again, all boils back to the attestation of making sure that the claims the CISO and the company are making to protect shareholders and customers, that they have the tools necessary to enforce those claims, and they're not relying on their individual work groups and developers to enforce the claims that are made at the C-suite level. The last thing I'll say about it is every company is a buyer and builder of software. Every company is using software, and every company has somebody inside the organization who's writing some code. And so it's important to make sure that you're thinking about your software supply chain with that balanced approach and have the tools necessary to provide the enforcement of those claims. So you may have gone out and done an acquisition recently and you bought some software product, or you brought in someone who brought software with them. And they're now using different tools with different exceptions and configurations that you have no control over. So there has to be a way for a corporate C-suite to step in and say, these are the red lines we will not cross, and a true way to enforce them as software is actually hit run and go and it's actually being built. And that space is owned by InvisiRisk today.
Outstanding. Thanks, David. And Garret, a question for you is, what's the relevance of YouAttest for like MSPs and consultants out there, that have a lot of clients that they have to deal with? What might they be able to do with this?
I literally, there was a post this morning from an employee on LinkedIn that was saying that, and I went on top of it. I go, it's what MSPs have to do now. It's MSPs are the, in many ways, and this was from an MSP, not from me, but they're basically the janitor of IT for these enterprises, right? And in a good way, and in the way of the custodian, it might be a better word, of doing what needs to be done. And they traditionally have taken on the task of, hey, I'll manage your email system, I'll make sure your devices are working, I will even help you with your storage, right? Well, given that 80% of the hacks are coming from our identities in one way or another, including the supply chain, the MSP's got to, become the adult in a room and look at them and go, hey, identity management isn't just setting up a user. It isn't even just adding two-factor. It's ensuring the rights that you have granted are still good. And there is a concept in identity that just is true. It's called privilege creep. It is the natural tendency for identities to keep growing and growing and growing with permissions. That's a natural tendency. And look up privilege creep and look up hacks. There's always this hack. There's always this guy who left. There's always this guy who moved the things, right? And the hackers, what we have to remember is the hackers love privilege creep. They love dormant accounts. They love orphan accounts because no one turns them off. No one says whatever. So that's where the MSPs can become the adult in a room. The same way they're adult in a room is saying, I got it. You can't manage your mobile. You can't manage your email. You can't manage your storage. They have to become the adult in the room when it comes to say, I'm not only going to provide you identity, manage your Entra ID, your jump cloud, your Okta, whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have regular reviews of your permissions that, by the way, keep you compliant to retail, PCI DSS, to defense, CMMC, to finance, GLB and NCUA and FFIAC. So by being the adult in the room and taking on access controls and doing access reviews, that is helps the MSPs in the adult table of IT management. They're saying, hey, we're going to help you where your real problems are. So I do see this as an MSP problem.
Excellent. Thanks, Garret. David, I'm sitting here thinking about responsible AI and all of this stuff, and everything that we're about to sort of be walking into. It feels like we're kind of stepping into a wood chipper sometimes, but I'm wondering, as far as where you play in all of this, what do you see in terms of the threat there from the open source and from supply chain?
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback on Garrett's comment there, just kind of talking about the responsibility people have. And sometimes your responsibility as an employer is getting product out, which is why AI is so helpful, right? So AI is helping people meet their objectives more quickly, but also adding in this other layer of risk, like how many fingers am I holding up? Like normally it's 5, but sometimes an AI picture that's AI generated picture showed 6, right? And so that happens in code. It's called slop squatting. It's one of the things that can happen with AI code. And so it can tell you, hey, there's this open source component that I posted and that I pulled from. But that open source component doesn't even exist. It didn't pull anything. But hackers know that some tools that build AI code are telling people to go here and pull something. So they're putting nasty stuff there. So AI is opening up all of this additional risk. But the tool is being used to get product out the door more quickly. So a lot of the MSPs and really a lot of consultants and security consultants have really a responsibility of helping their customers address the issues that were raised by, like, the JP Morgan CISO just wrote an open letter to software manufacturers. And 2 of the 3 main points were, stop worrying about your speed and start worrying about my safety. And the second of the 3 things was, it's a network, protect the network. So we're really trying to help businesses use these cool tools, but make sure that they're not just exploding their risk posture because they've got no way of, when you train an employee who's a software developer, or you have someone you hire, they have some rules and regulations and security training and things they go to. When they go to AI to help write some code for them, and it's pulling an open source, it doesn't have the same level of training that your employee does, or moral responsibility, right? It's AI. And so it's a combination of allowing your employees to move more quickly, but doing so in a way that doesn't screw up that governance, risk, and compliance claim that you're making, and the attestation claims. And the consultants can be a great help there. And we've really, my first software company ever was BindView. My brother was the founder of BindView in 1990. I consider myself a co-founder because I was employee number 8. Then you're in the top 10, right? You could be a co-founder.
That counts. You can say
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And we built our business by providing tools to consultants and security auditors. Let them do their job more quickly for less money. And then our product was a leave behind because the customer said, hey, you can't take this tool away from me. I need it to make sure I'm safe after you leave. And so there's a lot to be said for the value of bringing in that third party to make sure that the claims you're making are being adhered to, because people internally, there's conflicting value about getting product out the door more quickly, that you just can't let your security slide to shift left tooling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking that's what we're doing over at My Tech Network. We're looking at you guys and thinking this is how you start the process of getting a proper health check. You start with the general physician, and then if things get a little deeper, then you start going to the specialists. And I think we're going to have to really reframe and rethink the whole architecture. And to that point, Garret, I mean, in and around the architecture and who's responsible for all of this, and is there an AI C-level AI person in most businesses? How does the GRC, what sort of wrapper or what can the GRC do to sort of stem this tide that's coming?
I really do see GRC as the adult in the room, and I just see that way. And it's not what really has hurt the GRC profession is the connectivity to compliance. Like what was brought up many times in this call was AI. Okay, now there's not regulations yet on AI. So should there be governance on AI? Damn straight, right? Yeah. Internal governance to make sure in the ISACA, who has the CGIT, the CISM, and all the other ones, they define governance as the act of delivering what the enterprise perceives as business value. And now you put that into what AI is, right? Is what we're producing in AI, is that delivering the results of what we expect it to be delivering, right? And can we attest, and I don't just mean to overuse that word, but attest to that data that is quantifying those results, okay? So when I see governance, governance is whether it be the MSP that says, hey, I will make sure that your suppliers, the identities coming in are actually ones. In the same way, if you're in governance or you're even just regular IT or cybersecurity around new AIs that you're rolling out, you want to be looking at what is being created, where the data came from, and then, help the organization to see whether there's some guardrails, which is literally just saying, we have a concept of what the output should be. Are we in line of that? Put some guardrails on the output of AI. So I that's where I look at governance. Governance is basically the adult in the room, either in both ensuring the identities are correct, but also when you're building software and building AI to ensure that the output is correct.
Excellent. Thank you, Garret. David, is there something, I feel like I want to ask you questions, but I don't really know where to go with this, because it's like what you're doing here is really kind of a lot deeper than what people are accustomed to hearing about inside of the whole framework. You're really challenging some things here that people really need to kind of step back and think about. And so, is there some kind of groundwork you can give us here to sort of set an idea of why this is so important and what to expect in the time to come?
Yeah, so one is what we are talking about here, which is AI in the last comment. And that is the fact that we need new ways of approaching problems with new technologies like AI. And one of the things that's kind of cool about what we've done is our product does deep packet inspection on the builds. And so we don't have to build new agents and scanners. We're not an agent or a scanner, or a proxy. And so if a new problem comes out, the data is already sitting in front of us. So we can kind of learn to keep our eye on what's going on with AI and the things that it's doing in a way without having to build new technology. And we use AI ourselves. So we have, for example, once a build runs, there can be thousands and thousands of events taking place that we're tracking. And we're using AI to look at everything that's happening, see anything that looks out of the ordinary, do anomaly tracking from previous builds of a software build that are happening. So in case we say, hey, that's new, that hasn't happened before, we can use AI to kind of track those things. And if we see something that, wow, that's something I don't want to have happen in the future, you can click a button and actually write a rule that can enforce that policy in real time. So you're not dealing with remediation, you're dealing with enforcement. And so the AI tools are just amazing that are out there. And the question is, how do you use them safely? The other thing that's important is the shift left tools aren't going anywhere because they get products out the door faster. There are tools like SCAs and DAST and SAS and other things that developers are using at the work group level to make sure that they can find problems early. But those tools, like I said, can have misconfigurations. They can have exceptions that are made to get the product out the door. And so the ability to put, as he mentioned, those guardrails on that is very, very important. And the people just think so much about vulnerabilities and software development as being open source. And the ability to kind of nip that in the bud, where nothing that has a copyleft license violation or a vulnerability or something pulled from a wrong repository, the ability to just turn on an enforcement mechanism and say, these red lines will not be crossed, and know that that data is DNA level accurate because you're watching a build actually happen. To knock that stuff out and just not have to worry about that anymore, so you can start focusing on better ways of developing using AI and start focusing more time on allowing those tools to happen in a safe way, gives CISOs and developers just a much broader tool set to work with but you've really got to be able to get the blocking and tackling done right. If you look at the news, the cybersecurity news, if you say cybersecurity, software supply chain attacks, and you set up a Google alert for that, you're going to get 10 or 20 things every single day in your inbox. So if there are secret scanners, why are secrets still leaking? If there's vulnerability scanners, why are vulnerabilities still getting out? And there are redirects. If there's tools for all this stuff, but they keep happening, you have to ask yourself, where are they slipping through the cracks? How are they getting through? And so what we're trying to do is just get the basic blocking and tackling of software security at the CI/CD machine level. Knock that out so that you can start really focusing on things you can do to broaden your development skill sets and really build better products.
Thanks, David. That was very succinct. Thank you. So, Garret, you've been at this for a little while. You've been in this space, I guess, in technology for a while. Where do you think things are going? What's sort of your vision here, and kind of what we need to all be buying stock in?
Well, it would be, I think by law, I will get a shoe thrown at my head if I do a cyber webinar or not mention zero trust. I know some people may not like that or not, but I actually really do like zero trust. I invented a product that was zero trust even before I knew it was zero trust over at Silence. What's relevant is, let's start with the way, and that's what I'm doing. I map this, what we've been talking to the zero trust maturity model, which the CISO does an excellent job of. They really do. And what we've been talking about today is two of the pillars. We've been talking about identity, and we've been talking about applications and workloads via David Pulaski's stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what's relevant here, and this is where I'll answer your question, where are we going? Okay. What zero trust basically says is, guys, the way we've been doing things, in David's world, just looking at the code, doing maybe code reviews, it's not working. Right? We are automation. And the same goes for identity reviews. Okay. We've got to go up this pyramid. We've got to be able to say, initially, in my world of identity, let's put some automation in this. Let's get rid of the spreadsheets and the emails going around saying, is this really your user? Is this privileges this? That's what YouAttest does. It automates. And we'll do a little demo at the end with Kashyap, and we'll do like a group review. And then we have to move up this ladder. Robert, this is where my answer to your question. If we move up this ladder, we get to advanced. Advanced is where we start throwing AI and digital scores in here and real-time triggers. And we do that in YouAttest. We do real-time triggers. Let's say in the case of the Caesars MGM hack, someone changes your admin privileges through your IAM. YouAttest would alert you. And then the optimal state of all this, and is defined by ZTMM, is when our products start communicating to each other. Okay, my score gets imbibed by other people's enforcement points, and then we start working in real time. So the way I look at it is, if anyone shows you this slide and looks at you and says, my product's optimal for zero trust, no, it's when all our APIs are integrated and so that. But let's start today and get into the initial, automate your reviews with YouAttest, and also, the InvisiRisk stuff. That's what you do. You're automating your alerts. You're automating your controls and your guardrails on your supply chain software. I see this is where it's going. Take it away, David.
I wish I had seen this earlier, because I have a slide that kind of mirrors this in a way. I call it the CISO seesaw.
Okay,
so
take it away.
Let's see it.
It's a seesaw, right? Where if all you're doing is having policy, your risk is high. But if you can attest to things and then enforce that policy,
nice.
The risk goes down. So that really kind of highlights the importance of zero trust. Because if you don't have the enforcement, you don't have the zero trust. And so that seesaw is out of balance, and you're not doing the most you can do to protect your customers.
Yeah, Yeah, and that's the answer to your question, Robert. I see it as David said, we tip the seesaw over to the side of the CISO with automation, with technology, with integration.
Excellent. David, did you have anything you wanted to demo or anything you wanted to sort of show off? You got a pretty baby pic or something?
I'll share my screen. I didn't set up a live demo, but I do want to spend just a moment
Please.
more talking about.
I do not have a baby pic or anything to demo.
Hello?
No.
All right. So anyway, I did want to kind of talk a little bit more about zero trust since you brought it up. So I'm going to kind of show you how modern tooling pre-InvisiRisk handles software development, right? So you've got most of the tools that are out there for software security. The things that you're attesting to are scanners and agents that are used at any of these individual layers. Like we scan source code, we scan the build machine, we scan and packaging, we look at distribution. But it's all of these areas in the network in between where like the nastiest stuff happens. So each of these letters corresponds with a type of attack that can happen. And so I'll give you one example, and this is where my CTO would say, wait, it gets worse. Every one of these components is sitting on a machine somewhere that has another 5 layers deep. So there's 35, 40 attack vectors here that people can attack your software supply chain. The app layer, binaries and libraries, Docker, etc. So I'll give you an example of zero trust not being enforced. Those guardrails are not placed today. If you're using a traditional security scanner, secret scanner, it's scanning at the app layer. It's looking at a log file and it's saying, okay, this is supposed to post to InvisiRisk. This is protected. But if somebody goes at the operating system layer and says, anytime you see InvisiRisk.com, go to Tor.com or somewhere else in the dark web, your scanner your security doesn't know about that because it's an attack that happened at an operating system layer, so that when the build kicks off, you've got a secret that's supposed to be stay protected, and now it posted to Tor. So if you're not watching that build live in real time, there are easy and simple ways for these attacks to take place. Whereas with zero trust watching a build happen, you can stop a secret from leaking, even if your tool says, hey, this secret should be protected. You really don't know what's happening until you actually watch the live transaction. And our ability to kind of step in there and block that provides that zero trust. And without it, if you look at all the secrets leaks in the news, all you're looking at is remediation, and not enforcement. I've been having a lot of fun lately with Gemini Deep Research by saying, look at InvisiRisk, look at how they handle secrets leaks, and tell me if there's any other tool on the planet Earth that can kind of come hell or high water ensure that secret doesn't get out. And the answer is that we do a better job because of that zero trust, right? We just don't allow it. And I'll show you one other thing I had keyed up for us today, because open source is you've asked a few times about it, and it's such a popular topic. If you go to, this is, for example, an SBOM built by GitHub Actions, and this is a tool like that Dependabot you may have heard of before. It's a vulnerability management tool. It's owned by GitHub. So basically, this is just a GitHub SBOM that was created, a list of the open source in the application. So they're telling you that there are about 22 open source components in there. And we've actually determined through our proxy that there are potentially 177. Instead of 3 vulnerabilities, there's actually 61. And the reason why is we're building the SBOM, we're building the vulnerabilities as the product's actually happening. So we're actually looking at where is it going to pull the open source? Did it go to the right place? But what did it actually pull? So inside of one open source package, there's 20 others. And inside of those 20, there could be 20 others. And so manifest files and log files don't see what's actually taking place. And so that zero trust is basically saying, when the rubber hits the road in a live transaction, what is actually happening when I'm building my software? And if you're giving me your SBOM, what actually happens when you build your software? And that zero trust is the key to enforcement and attestation claims. And the only way to manage that is by watching live transactions, because there's so many ways, if you go back over here, for someone to insert something here that says, yeah, this said do something, but when it got over here, something else happened. And that's exactly with SolarWinds. Someone modified the packaging system. So a claim that was made in the source code didn't match the claim that happened when the software was built. And so being able to protect from that is absolutely key. And I'm glad you brought up that zero trust, because I hadn't hit on it a lot, and it's really important.
And David, right on, automation. Nice.
Yeah. But we've been working on it, and I know you guys have too.
Yeah, and back in the silence days, and that was we defined bad, and really, I think, you've really kind of built upon that whole framework as well, Garret, in the way that you've rolled this out, because we were really talking about trying to find the bad guys, but now these bad guys can be anything and anywhere. It boggles the mind, the possibilities. I use this term AI injection, but just like when we got the first SQL databases out there, no one knew about a SQL injection. They didn't know how that could be attacked, and so yeah, you guys are performing some significant jobs here inside of the software. So Garret, did you want to give us a demo, or?
Yeah. So Kashif, why don't we do this? Could you run a demo, do a basically just a Entra ID group review, which is a lot of what Federation, I've been doing Federation System Integrity for 25 years, is what we're doing. We're saying, okay, we're going to access this group, but as I said, with privilege creep, we keep adding users and we don't subtract. Take it away, Kashif.
Sure, Garret, thank you. Please let me know you can see my screen.
We can see the dashboard with the wonderful colors and the KPIs. There we go.
Yes, I'll just keep it short. And just let you know, this dashboard YouAttest tenant is integrated at the moment with one of the Entra ID environments. So whatever we are pulling in this demo is directly from the IAM, from the applications that are part of Entra ID environment, the groups that are part of that environment, the individual identities that have been given permissions and privileges, those are part of that environment. So after the integration, you can simply create these audits targeting an application inside an Entra ID, or a group within the system, within the environment, or any individual user, for example, an admin, to see what kind of access and privileges does that admin has within the environment. So you can target any of those use cases, but it's not limited to these 3 use cases. If you have anything outside of your IAM, if you have anything outside of your Entra ID, let's suppose it's a legacy application that have been sitting there for a decade or something, you can use our CSV engines to bring that information into YouAttest and audit those users and those identities that way as well. So it's not limited only to the systems or platforms that are integrated with YouAttest, but anything that you have out there that has identities and people can access those resources using those identities, you can audit those resources and those identities. So let me just go ahead and show how that works. After the integration, I'll create a group audit just to show if somebody has access to a group within your IAM, within your identity access management system, how can you audit those resources? So I'm targeting a specific group, or maybe a bunch of groups in there. You can do that as well. Let's say you are targeting finance group, or a sales or marketing, or any other group in there as a target. You are pulling all the users that can access that group, because in most of the cases, companies, they assign privileges and permissions to a group, and then whenever some identity becomes part of that group, inherits those permissions. And same works for when they leave the group, they lose all those permissions that were associated with that group. So once we pull that group and the users associated within that with that group, it creates a nice audit for them, for your admin, for your internal auditors to see who has access to what. And a little refresh, and it should pull the metadata from my IAM, and it has pulled 8 unique users that have access to the finance group within my Entra ID. Who they are, let's go inside. That's your target group. These are your target users, and you can see their username, you can see their email ID, which is the unique identifier used for allowing and granting permissions to these users. It could be human or non-human users, could be service accounts, right? So as long as it's a unique entity and you have given permissions to that entity, we can review those. You see a bunch of details under here, like what's the user role this identity has, what was the last password change date, when was the last login, title, what's the full name, who's the manager or direct supervisor, so you can track this user and their access. You also see the group owners in case you would like them to review, well, should they have access to that particular group or not, and you want them to review this, you can pull that information from IAM. And then at the end, it all comes down to the admin to delegate these users. That admin does not have to review all these hundreds of users himself or herself. The only thing he or she needs to do is to delegate these users out there to the people who really matter, who can really say that yes or no, they need or they don't need this access, or they shouldn't have that. It could be their direct supervisors. It could be anyone within the security team. It could be anyone within IT team. It doesn't matter. Whoever you think should be reviewing these identities, you can assign it to those individuals within the company with one click. So you choose the manager, you choose the group owner, or if you don't want to do that, you can choose anyone within the organization by doing it manually by adding an email ID of, let's say, David or Robert or Garret. I mean, instead of the manager, these 3 people should be reviewing these users and their access. You can do that as well. But for just this demo, I'll just go with the auto delegation part, which allows you to choose between the manager and the group owner. You just confirm, and the tools start pushing out those notifications to the people you have signed these people to. What they see, they will have an email message in their mailbox, right? Along with the link to the audit, just like I'm showing you right here. When they click on the link, this thing will open for them. And you will be able to see the users that report to you being their manager. So you're responsible to say, well, Mark should have access, and I certify that. But this person, well, he has left the company 2 months ago. Why is he having access even today? Just go ahead and revoke this access immediately. That's all a manager has to do, right?
And then Kashif, I'll go on top with the relevance of supply chain. That's it. The reviewer of that application gets the subset of users that get that application, and that's it. And they don't get, some bizarre spreadsheet or some outdated. It's real-time group mapping. And we're seeing our enterprises who are doing these type of reviews once a year, doing them monthly with the automation.
Right, exactly.
And this is also reminding me, just kind of thinking about software supply chain, CI/CD, and attestation and access. There are certain things that no human should touch. There are certain things when you run your build system that only the CI/CD runner should be writing to that file. So if somebody spearphished and got someone's credentials, it shouldn't matter, because a human should never attack those things, never be able to touch certain files that are done through automation. And that's also important here, right? Is to be able to say there are certain things that only certain people should have, and there are certain things that only systems should be writing to.
Exactly.
Nice. And that's that way we're going to review those.
Yeah. And then what you can do with this audit later on you can even schedule those so that it runs in future without, getting anyone involved or just keeping an eye on the calendar that I have to run this every month or every quarter. Just go ahead and schedule the same audit that you ran today. Plus, it gives you the ability to add the triggers to the whole process. If someone is trying to make changes to a group within the environment, and escalating permissions or privileges within that group, you should be notified, or somebody should be
Yeah.
notified immediately in real time that this is happening, instead of them coming back after the weekend and finding it out by the time the damage is already done. So
That's right.
these triggers help you whenever there is a change in the group permission level, or if there is a change in the user profile level, somebody gets to know. And that somebody could be, three different layers. It could be a group within the company, it could be an individual within the company, and it could be a manager within that company who should be getting a notification in real time when that thing is happening. So
Yeah.
that also is part of the, security and compliance what we have implemented in this tool as well.
Good stuff,
Garret?
Kashif. All right.
Very
Why don't
good.
we,
Your UI looks great. I'm feeling bad now. I didn't have a demo ready.
oh, it's all good.
Oh,
We'll
all
keep-
good. Really just wanted to kind of, start to really unpack this. And any final thoughts or messages here for us here that are on this call, David? Any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, identity management, access management, security and zero trust. This is all key to protecting the software that everybody's building for sale, or for, something you built for your own website that could potentially cause real grief for your customers and shareholders. And so it's just really important to make sure that you know what's in your software and where your software is going to build. Where is it pulling from? What data is it pushing out? And that real time zero trust mapping of transactions is super, super important. And it's become too hard to remediate problems after they happen. So it's just, the internet has gotten too complex. More has to be done to protect through tooling and automation, to protect bad things from happening before you decide, hey, we're gonna have to fix it later. It's just, the fix it later approach is real trouble. And so I really appreciate you having me on the session today, and hopefully everybody learned a little something from everybody else.
Yes, thanks, David. Yeah, it was actually reminding me, when back in DBase 3 days when I was on my DOS machine, and way back time machine, and I wrote this really nifty invoicing program for my brother-in-law, and this is what it used to be like back in the day when people were, trying to figure out all this software stuff. Well, today, we've got AI writing AI. I mean, we the humans are soon out of the loop here. And so, yeah, I think it's very important that this brings some responsible human intervention, the man in the mirror, if you will, the person that has to sort of that which has to oversee everything. So any final thoughts, Garret, in terms of what we've
Yeah,
been talking about here today?
There was a question, and Nazia
Oh, yeah.
said it, and I'll bring it
I
up.
didn't see that.
Yeah, it was basically
I was thinking about the shrink wrap days too. The only people that got your software are the ones that you sent a physical box to.
Right. Exactly.
Go ahead, Garret.
No, the question was about AI security and security posture. And I would say what I would is reference is take a look at what OWASP wrote about their AI framework, the top 10 to OWASP. And I thought they did the best job, because what they do is they talk about things that David's been talking about. It's like, you got to control the application. You got to control your inputs. And they talk about what YouAttest talks about. You got to control the data, who has access to the data, who has access to the algorithm, who has access to the application when it's finally deployed. And really, in some of the best ratings I've seen about AI governance have been, if we start with NIST CSF 2.0 with the same principles, what David's been talking about, own the application. I've been talking about, who has access and monitor that. we'll be in decent shape.
Yeah.
I compared it, the OWASP to the, I like the MITRE stuff, their Atlas, but it's very, pen testy. Thought the AI RMF by NIST is a bit of an overkill, and I don't think people can do it. And OWASP 4201 is a bit much as well. I'd start with the OWASP and looking at that. I think they did a real good job.
Hey, can I share my screen one more time?
Please.
I'll show you something cool. Just pull this up. So we've been using AI to protect people from AI.
Nice.
So this is our dashboard. So these are all the recent builds in the whole organization. It could just be one product you're looking at. So I can go in here, and this is going to show me like the last build built by this project. So I can look for anomalies and policy violations. This is real-time stuff. So you're seeing, in this case, it's 31, but normally it's thousands of inspections. But we've built this anomaly engine that basically is saying we're using AI to watch the build happen, to look for suspicious things a lot of times that AI has done to your code, right? And so we're using AI to watch AI in a way. And then if you don't know what some of the things are, you can hit a button and say, explain what this thing is doing here, what this software just went out and did. And from there, you can click a button and actually generate a policy to try to stop those things in real time later. But the idea of asking AI to watch code that's built by AI, I just thought that was kind of funny as you did it. And so, yeah.
That's good.
And I think that's what it's going to take. Yeah, I absolutely do.
Yep.
We've crested that new age now. We're in a different space. So how can folks get a hold of you, David? How can they contact you?
Anyone is welcome to email me directly, david.pulaski, Pulaski at InvisiRisk, InvisiRisk, or info@InvisiRisk. And we can connect within minutes to any CI/CD project you have and just enlighten you as to what's really going on when you hit go in your code. But another place to start is if you're already using tools, for example, building an SBOM, an open source list, or you have one from one of your vendors, we can create an account for you. You can drop it in there and we'll show you what's actually in the software that you're running or building. And I don't want to mention any names, but we have run this week for our new release against one of the premier SBOM SCA tools, software composition analysis tools, and said what's really the open source in my code down to the version number, exactly what's there and what is actually not in there. And we are absolutely destroying the data that they're putting in front of us. So would love to do that for anybody who's interested in taking a look.
It's a software gumball machine. I love it. Put it in there and let's see what happens. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I think a lot of folks should take you up on that offer. And Garret, how can folks get a hold of you at YouAttest? Obviously, that's where you're at, YouAttest. But
yeah, just write us at youattest.com, and on top of that, we'll show you our AI-based identity trust score that goes back all the way back to zero trust and all that. Just had to show that screen in a fun way. But David, that was great. Yeah, reach us out there, audience, at info@youattest.com. Okay, I'm Garret Grajek, and you can hit me on LinkedIn or just CEO@youattest.com.
Thank you, Garret. I'm going to go to YouAttest right after this call. I learned something new on this one about your technology that I didn't know before.
These are great. These are great partners. Love my tech network bringing us together. Thanks a lot, Robert.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you and everything that you're doing. So thank you to everyone that's been on the call. We thank you for spending time with us, and hopefully you learned something new and got excited about where this is going. So
thank you, Rob.
Have a blessed day. Take care, everyone.
All the best.
Bye.